a little fun because this is fun time for Jess and Mikki. Hi, Mix.
Hi, it's so hilarious, Jess. You're there in a singlet, and I've got like some sort of like polar fleece body warmer on.
I actually thought of this. I'm like,
it's very winter.
I'm going to show up to our podcast in a bikini, and you're going to be in a
in a snowsuit.
Now I'm in a snowsuit. I think about this all the time. Like, I'm going to turn the fan off, but I'm literally in like a tank top and shorts, and I'm hot. And the ice in my water has already melted, but it's not excruciating. It is a true night like this that I wish we were podcasting in my backyard together, because it's lovely. Total Mikki and Jess weather. It's like perfect for you because it's not too hot and it's not too cold.
Yeah, so nice. And Auckland's a lot like that. Midsummer. Now we're just in winter, and it's fine because it is winter. You know, like I was running with my friend Nikki this morning, and we were like, well, we're in the depths of it right now, literally as well. Like it's what is it? It's the 10th of July here. So we're almost smack bang in the middle of calendar winter. So we've got to expect some inclement weather, right?
I know.
It is what it is. And then just lean into that and go, cool, it's just cozy. It is, you know, it's slow cooked meats. It's heat pump on, it's cups of tea, things like that.
What was the thing you just said? I always love when you talk Mikki to me. What was pom-pom? What was the thing?
No, I
Before
said
a cup of tea. What did you say?
I said slow cooked meats.
Yes.
The heat
that sounded
pump
normal.
on. The heat pump. Pom-pom hats, maybe. Actually, we've got 2 of them at home, but they don't come out.
Oh my God. I was like, that is so cute. What the heck is that? But I want to eat it. It's called pom-poms.
No, heat pump, yes. And in fact, it's not true winter here. Like people listening to this down south will be like, come on, Willardon, you come from Dunedin. Like you've softened over the 20 years, because this is nothing compared to what people experience down in my hometown in Dunedin.
It's super cold.
And similarly to you, like you'll be the same as us, but just,
for sure.
Like
for sure.
Pretty temperament. Yeah.
I think about that often, you know, because where we are in the US is really very, very, very nice, you know, in terms of like overall. So, and I really only lived here, you know, I've lived all around like in neighboring areas, but I haven't gone anywhere where the weather is, you know, extreme, for the most part. So I'm always appreciative. I feel like we open up with weather. Like every time I'm like, oh my God, I'm here, you're cold or warm. But I think that has a lot to do with it's another thing people can just add to their overall mood and wellness. You can think about your exercise, your supplements, your nutrition that day. And I do think the weather does affect your energy levels. And I do think it affects your mood. So I think it's something 100%. That we tend to kind of ignore, you know, push away. But I do think it's like a big deal. And so speaking to that, it's kind of funny, like, you know, what you and I have been thinking about or hearing more about. So I'll make the jump from weather and mood to perceived exertions and just how we measure perceived exertion. But what seems to be coming up in conversations quite a bit is something called heart rate variability, or otherwise known as HRV.
Yeah.
And so I understand it again as a way to measure your heartbeats, otherwise known as a way to measure your exertion. You were saying, you know, your industry, like, you know, everybody in exercise physiology is talking about it, but why is it coming up in like conversations with like, you know, just sort of regular people, like
regular people,
why, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do we actually? Well, all of a sudden, like it's like creatine. You know what I mean? We're like, everywhere we go, it's like you know, it's constantly in conversation. So I just thought that maybe we'd have a quick discussion about it, why we care about it, and maybe exactly what it is.
Yeah, great, Jess, because in fact, it came up in conversation twice this week. And to your point, and to the point I made to you before we jumped on, is that this really was the domain of exercise physiologists and scientists like 10 years ago. Like a friend of mine did his PhD looking at heart rate variability. It was very new at the time. That might have been just 10 years ago now, actually. So, and now it is because of our wearables and our watches and the ability and the apps that now track it, that track your HRV, it's moved from that performance and the readiness to train and perform and the recovery for an athlete to actually just your everyday person as well. So HRV refers to the variation in time between successive heartbeats. So while your average heart rate might sit at, 60 beats per minute or 50 beats per minute, it doesn't beat once every second as you would expect it to. It's not this sort of very
rhythmic heartbeat.
There's a natural variation, and the HRV is in fact the variation between those heartbeats, and it reflects how adaptable and responsive your nervous system is to the stresses in your life. So, and in fact, I podcasted with Marco Altini, who a couple of podcasts, and the original one that I chatted to him about was about his app HRV for training, and he's got another one for health as well, and just making it accessible, making the concept of HRV accessible to athletes and health conscious people by allowing them to monitor that physiological state, so their nervous system, with their smartphone, albeit of course the people I'm talking to and about have it on their Garmin watches, on their Apple watches, on their Oura rings, on their Whoops and things like that. So the conversation of readiness and adaptability and resilience takes on this, is less about how we're feeling today and listening to our own internal cues and letting the data sort of do the reading for us, which of course has its pros and its cons.
Okay, so just again, I'm going to try to absolutely simplify that, because I do understand it's like another way to measure your response to stress, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, just say you're we'll call it just your average athletic health conscious person. Why would I even need to know about it? Let's say I've got got it on my wearable. I'm really wanting to pay attention. How would it benefit me? Like where, what am I, why would I need it?
So, I mean, this is, I guess that's a subjective a subjective question, just in that you get an objective number or answer. So you absolutely get the watch tells you whether your HRV is, how it's tracking in terms of readiness and recovery and things like that, albeit it's using things like sleep, using your heart rate. Obviously, it's using your heart rate variability. But people, this is the thing with tracking, Jess, is people are much more likely to outsource their internal information and how they feel. They outsource it to their watch. So they might look at something, or they might look at their Whoop and say, well, my HRV, isn't looking so good today. So I think that, I'm going to take it easy on training because of that. Or they're like, so they won't necessarily, so they'll do one of two things. They'll either use it as gospel, which isn't always a good idea, because it's, never, it's always sort of, when you use any sort of tracking device as gospel, you're outsourcing how you feel, or you'll ignore it and you'll just like track on anyway. But there is some utility in it. Like if you look at, I've seen people, I can't recall whether there are actual studies on this, but I do know that devices like the Oura Ring and the Whoop have at least released white papers, which are research studies which haven't been published and might not be peer reviewed, but they sort of exist, and they explain their study showing that if you have a lower HRV and it's consistently lower, that can actually predict illness. And
that is kind of what I'm getting at. Okay. Yeah. So, because again, it's like people aren't going to do half of, they're going to entertain maybe a little bit of what you said, but really they just want to know, this is another metric to measure my response to stress. But if the metric is low, then say what you just said again, then it's a marker toward something about illness. I forgot exactly what you just said.
It can be. Yeah. It can be a predictor of illness or overtraining or burnout or something like that.
Okay. And if it's higher?
Then it's good. Often it's good. Like it's showing that you're adaptive and responsive and ready to go. Albeit, it's interesting because I was chatting to Dan this week, Dan Plews, who was the guy I was saying who's doing his PhD, who had done his PhD on it, because I'd have someone contact me and said, my HRV is super high. It's not usually, and it was after a protein-only day, so they had a fasting day. And normally that kind of stress, I would have assumed, would actually tank your HRV and not improve it. But in fact, the caloric restriction, Dan said, would do the opposite. It would actually increase it as a bit of an anomaly. So you can't take what HRV says for gospel. So I think, like anything, you look for trends rather than necessarily that sort of day-to-day changes. So look for trends or day-to-day changes.
Again, if we're talking about like maybe the three major ways to sort of track your responses to stress, like you have HRV as one, then you have RPE as another one. So that's rate of perceived exertion. Can we quickly talk about that a little bit? That's a little bit less like, that really just has to honestly do with how you're feeling, right? Like your breath and those are kind of the ways you measure them. Is there like an app for that too?
A scale?
Yeah.
I think there probably
I use a scale, and I literally use a scale like based upon my effort. Literally, I'll be like, 1 through 10 or whatever it is or something.
Yeah. It is. I think there is 1 through 10. There's 6 through 20 or something. Okay. It might be called the Borg scale.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure that there is an app that you track it on. But to your point, Jess, like, how do you feel? Like, and in fact, a lot of because of a lot of the trackables, the tracking devices and the wearables, a lot of coaches and even exercise physiologists are coming back to, all of this is all very well and good, but how do you feel? Because too many people are outsourcing to the tracking device and not actually tuning into how their body's truly responding. To your point.
I mean, totally. And I was just trying to think, is there, so we've got 2, is there a third?
I suppose it would be maybe resting heart rate.
Okay, so fine. I don't want any more than 3 anyways. I think people are gonna be too overwhelmed. So we're gonna go with these 3, resting heart rate, and talk about that.
Yeah, so resting heart rate increases when you're overtrained, or you might be sick, or you're just not recovering that well. And of course, it's easy enough to measure your heart rate when you're lying in bed. This is like just before you get out of bed and you just measure it.
About that.
Yeah. So it's, it's super easy to track. And of course, again, your wearable probably tracks your resting heart rate and does. The extent to which your watch does it truthfully, and this is the thing with using your watch for tracking almost anything, is that there's a lot less, I think there's a lot less validity in that compared to, say, wearing a heart rate strap or an Oura ring, or an Oura even. Yeah.
So okay. So those are the 3 ways. Okay. Just so you can, again, people, it's okay if you don't remember any of them, but I think people are just trying to get more into the science of tracking their body's response to stress so that they can have a better clinical understanding of like themselves. And I think that's great. Yeah. If you were to track it on a wearable, what would be your top 3 wearable tracking devices?
I would use an Oura ring, actually, if I was going to use anything.
That's good. I mean, I've heard a lot of people do you wear one?
No.
I don't either. So, but people like them. So the Oura ring, Apple Watch.
Oh, yeah. But again, the watch is prone to being not potentially as accurate. And of course the Whoop. People use the Whoop and love the Whoop as well.
They do. Okay. Yeah. That's good. I have one friend and client that I can think of right away, and it's kind of funny because she'll say I sort of have a sometimes healthy, sometimes dysfunctional relationship with the Oura ring, because she'll wake up and it's got, it's blasting all this information at you. And so again, I always, for our audience, I really want people to take these things in digestible pieces of information and take one little piece that feels like helpful to you in your day-to-day life. I do not want to continue to inundate you. I think we already have too much information. You don't even need half that information.
Yeah.
Right. But since it's coming up in conversation, these metrics, heart rate, variability, and resting heart rate and rate of perceived exertion are just ways to, again, look at how your body is responding. And then the wearable devices will help you track that. But they're not perfect. Like they're going to shoot out, and sometimes you're going to have something, it's going to affect it. So, you know, I'm not 100% sure the answer. Like, I really want to wear an Oura and I'm kind of living and dying, you know, by this, by the data. I don't know what to say sometimes, you know. I'm like, take it off.
It's the same with anything. You don't
take a break from it, right?
Yeah.
If
I think it's good, but people get nervous.
Consuming, they get really nervous.
Yeah.
Why do they get nervous?
Because because they rely on it for them like what's my HRV doing? Like, how did I sleep? Like, what's my, you know, what are my steps? And I love steps. I love tracking my steps. So I appreciate that. And then part of me doesn't want to get an Oura because I think I have all of this data, but I'm probably not going to do anything with it. So why would I bother? Like, my watch does almost everything that we're talking about. Not the RPE, that's something sort of internal, but but I don't, like, I'm not going to wear my watch to bed so it can tell me how well I slept. And therefore, because I'm not wearing it to bed, it's not going to give me a good, I can't measure my HRV. So, you know, there's certain things which are super important for people to track, and others are super interesting, but they're only important if you actually do something with the data. And a lot of people do.
I would love to know that. Okay, so really fast, if you were to say to people, and I have my phones, what would be like the most important things to track, and what are like, oh, that's cool, but it doesn't really matter if you know it or you don't know? What would what would those things be?
Steps. Absolutely.
Track your steps. Yep.
Yeah. And this is for anyone who is interested in body composition, I think.
Totally.
Track your steps.
Good.
Yeah. Track your training sessions that you do them, and track your food. And tracking your food could just be a journal. It doesn't have to be on an app.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the things to track. And so perfect. So steps, training, food.
Yeah.
And the things that are like cool, but you don't necessarily need to track them would be
sleep.
Okay.
HRV. Heart rate, like your resting heart rate. I mean, you can, but I mean, these are things which, you know, tracking your sleep, it seems it tells us it's certainly improved. Like I know the Oura and the Whoop have both improved their ability to tell you about how much sleep you've had, but it can't necessarily tell you sleep stage. And I'm pretty sure that they try to do that. Yeah. And you go to bed. Like, you know how often you wake up, you know how rested you are. And that's the most important thing. Like, how rested are you? It's not necessarily what your ring is telling you that you know, track. So
I think it is super interesting from a psychology standpoint how much weight we put into the analytics on a wearable device. You know what I mean? And how like not enough, I'm not saying we don't put any on how are you feeling today, Mix? Where's your energy? Did you eat that? And did you feel good after you ate it? Like, how did that training session work for you? Like, it's just unbelievable to me sometimes how that doesn't seem to transfer. Now, I am not hating, we're talking about it today, you guys, on this podcast, because it's clearly comes up, but I want you all to go, great. I have a little bit better understanding of HRV, you know, and the heartbeats and my response to stress, and same thing with RPE, and same thing with resting heart rate. So, but I think it's also a conversation to have with yourself of why you put so much emphasis on those points.
Although what I think we should finish up with is that it is like, it's still helpful and can be really useful, because the other use case is, we were talking about alcohol this week in my groups, and people notice that HRV totally tanks with alcohol. And in fact, if that's a driver to get you to drink a little less and consider your alcohol consumption, then that is 100% a good thing as well. So I don't think that, like, I think that they all have their place. You just don't want to outsource everything to, you know, you don't have to feel like you have to spend a lot of money on an expensive wearable.
Sure.
And two, don't outsource everything to it, but use, you know, for it does have its purposes, but for the everyday person, it's, you know, if you're measuring that stuff, then actually make some note of it. I'm sort of being hypocritical saying, don't pay too much attention, but pay a little bit of attention. I mean, like anything, it's always grey.
You actually just kind of circled back. I like to have one or two reasons why it's really important to pay attention to it. So you just said alcohol, and so that can affect your heart rate variability because why?
Because it tanks your sleep typically. Yeah.
And so it's good to have maybe something that can just show you the discrepancy between a heavy night or moderate night of drinking versus a night of not drinking. And you can at least have the data points to see the difference. And maybe for all of you all, maybe sometimes that's what you need to see. You know, and maybe you have to see that for you to kind of make the connection in your brain that I'm going to perform a little bit better knowing these data points that I'm just looking at. Of course, you feel it, but sometimes you just might have to see it. Maybe it kind of just goes back to like what motivates you or what kind of learner you are, or, you know, 100. I don't know, right? It's just like another way to kind of speak to that, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree.
Anything else that besides alcohol that could really sway the HRV one way or the other? You said illness. So I guess
menstrual cycle.
Okay.
Injury could potentially.
And what?
Injury could potentially.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. I think there are just stress, obviously, like huge. Yeah. Stress. Overtraining, undertraining, heaps of things affect your HRV.
Okay. Yeah. But you're going to feel it, right? You're going to feel it. So just listening to your body.
Yeah,
is the less expensive version of this.
And albeit I'm sure that if I did get an Oura ring, I would probably be all over it, you know.
Sure.
And I think probably because I don't have a comfortable way to measure my HRV, it's just one less thing I think about, I suppose.
So measure your steps or track your steps, track your food, and track your training. Those things are probably if you feel like you need some data points, those would be the ones to maybe track regularly for overall, health goals. But then there are so many others, right? Because you could also keep an eye. You could also track how you feel.
Like, do you feel refreshed when you wake up with your sleep or stress? You could track how stressed you feel on a 1 to 10 basis. Like, there are so many things that you could track. But yes, from a body composition perspective, they'd be top 3, and those other things would affect a lot of the other, the stressors and the other things.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I hope that answers everybody's questions about.
I don't think so. I think it's probably
you're going to come back and you're going to have more questions, but that's okay because we'll be here to answer them. But just understand that heart rate variability is just another metric to measure your body's response to stress. Really simply put. Like, that's the simplest way to talk about it. And it's good. 100%. It's good that we have these things that used to be in the land of the exercise physiologists. And now we actually have a little bit of access that the common person, the normal person can have little bit of accessibility to this. And that makes me happy.
Yeah, and I would say if anyone is interested and they're not yet sort of explored, then check out, and I'll pop it in the show notes, Marco Altini's Substack. He gives a stack of really great advice and explanations for HRV. So and its utility as well, because there is a lot of utility for it. So I'll pop that in the show notes.
Yes, all of this is necessary and can be very helpful as long as you're just not getting washed away with too much information. Just
you're not
take what you need.
Take
what you need and be consistent with what you need.
Exactly.
Right? If it allows you to be consistent and helps you to better understand your body, then good.
Yeah, amazing.
What are you grateful for?
I am grateful for the lovely weekend that I just had in Melbourne with Hubster.
Your birthday weekend. We left June as Jessica's birthday month, and we entered into July as Mikki's.
Yes, amazing. How about you, Jess?
Happy birthday month. I'm grateful that you were born. I'm happy to be celebrating you all month long, because I will. I'm always grateful to have a better understanding of health and how we can help people with health, because it's just so broad. But I think when we have more control over it, it opens up our universes. So I'm super grateful for that and this weather. Nice this bikini I'm in right now.
That's lovely.
All right, see y'all soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.